What's up guys, Everything Apple Pro here, and I'm so excited to talk to you guys today about iOS 12. There's been a leak, both exciting and disappointing at the same time, regarding the contents of iOS 12, regarding the features and some things that Apple is planning that you may not like, but at the same time, you have to appreciate. So in this video, let's cover the contents of iOS 12 based on this leak, what to expect later this year. And I get so giddy when I think about the new updates coming to new iPhones because, I've been doing this for almost a decade, yet every single time Apple manages to add something, even though sometimes it may be smaller, bigger, regardless, it's just great to get updates and refinements all throughout. But this time on iOS 11, Apple kind of failed. I mean, to be honest, I have never had this much trouble with a new OS version. Bugs, crashes, just instability. It has been pretty awful regardless of the iPhone that you have. And to prove that point very quickly, I want to show you a crash I found on my iPhone 10, even though I'm sure you don't need convincing that it's very bad bug-wise on iOS 11. So with reduced motion on, just swipe up really quickly from the bottom right here and your iPhone just crashes. That's just one little tiny example as to why iOS 11 is terrible. So Apple's been making it better with these smaller updates, but this time around, Apple's got a new plan for iOS 12, and a lot of people aren't really going to like it, but I think everybody will appreciate it. And this is exactly what they did with iOS 10, a refinement update. An update that isn't so much focused on features, but focused on fixing what they broke in the first place and delivering the experience they should have had on iOS 11, now on iOS 12. So according to Ina Fried, the chief technology correspondent of Axios, this news site actually is reporting that some employees that were in a meeting which Craig Federici was heading are reporting that they now know Apple's plan for iOS 12, and it's a revised plan due to recent circumstances of the news, a lot of bugs, a lot of security issues happening. So Apple is taking a step back, stepping away from the features table, things that they'd like to bring iOS 12, and instead will be focusing on delivering an experience, stability. And that's something that I do appreciate. I want my iPhone to be stable, not crash, of course. Everybody does. And at the same time, it's a little disappointing because the report is saying that Apple will be reducing or removing some of the features they had planned for iOS 12. So you're going to be getting your stability, but the features that they had planned will be removed. And I'll talk about those here in just a second. So I want to ask you guys, first off, are you okay with this? Is this a plan that you would rather Apple do? Because I'm all for it. I would rather have my phone not crash on me, not bug out when playing Apple Music, not have my messages come in jumbled instead of having, a couple new features, which is great too. But on the flip side of the coin, a stable iPhone would be a lot more pleasing to use than getting new features. And I first wanted to mention why they're doing this. In the last few months, the media coverage of Apple has truly been awful. The amount of software bugs, security issues, the whole battery thing with older iPhones for Apple has been bad. So they need to fix this, their public image in terms of software. And they're going to be planning on doing that with iOS and Mac OS. They have intentions to do the very same thing. So they will be removing some of their features they were planning for iOS, instead focusing on that software enhancement. Now, which features would those be? In the report, it actually said that they're pushing these features over to 2019's iOS release, iOS 13, or whatever it might be called by then. In iOS 12, originally, it was planned to have a revamped home screen. So maybe redesigned icons, the way it looks would be a little bit different because it's been a bit stale. I mean, ever since iOS 7, we've basically had the same icons with a little bit of tweaks here and there on iOS. And there were plans to improve the core app experiences like on Mail, revamp it, maybe look-wise, functionality-wise, as well as the camera and the photo editing aspect of your phone. So possibly in-camera controls for changing the resolution, picture size, things like that, something that I would have really liked to have on iOS. So that will not be happening in iOS 12, as well as sharing experiences. So possibly something to do with the storage and sharing things in between devices, maybe some updates to AirDrop as well. And there were plans to refine the in-car interface, so CarPlay would have received a big upgrade. Very likely that there would be an on-iPhone version of CarPlay to where you wouldn't have to plug your iPhone into the car in order to get that interface. But at the same time, that's not confirmed. That's just something I'm guessing. But CarPlay would have got some refinements on its own. So which features did survive the cut and will be showing up in iOS 12? And you're not really going to like this. I mean, I didn't. There was nothing that really stood out to me. So first off, improvements to augmented reality. In iOS 11.3 already, Apple improved that. They introduced ARKit 1.5 support, and in iOS 12 they're going to be further enhancing that. So I really don't know what this means. Some more complicated support for certain surfaces maybe in iOS 12, maybe support for some sort of augmented reality glasses. Who knows? I mean, it doesn't really say, but that's not very interesting to me. But Apple will be improving that in iOS 12, and improvements to digital health and parental controls will be introduced as well. Pretty boring for me, but the health part I will take because I use it with my Apple Watch a lot, and I am interested in that more than parental controls. I personally don't have kids, but for parents, of course, that will be a great tool to have. And lastly, something we already mentioned, Apple will be improving the responsiveness and stability of their iPhones. So that will be one of the major selling points for iOS 12. And if you remember, on iOS 10, that was the very same thing. Apple said they would improve the storage, the battery life, and the speed of their devices. And I guess they did towards the end of iOS 10, it got better. Upon release, it was pretty bad. So I expect iOS 12 to be no different than iOS 10. It'll be kind of buggy, pretty buggy at first, and will improve towards the end of it, which iOS 11 is slowly doing, but it's still an incoherent mess. And this report is calling into question whether or not this is a smart thing for Apple to do. I personally think it is, but they're asking whether or not for new consumers it would be a smart thing to do, because they look at the feature side of thing for iOS before upgrading, before getting a new iPhone. They want to see new features, and if Apple's focusing on stability, it's hard to realize the worth of that right away. Whereas over time, of course, it's a great thing to have a stable phone, but a new customer isn't going to see that right away when they handle a new iPhone with iOS 12. And a couple more points. Since this is a stability release, the iPhone 5S may actually get an iOS 12 update, as the iPhone 5 got an update to iOS 10, which was also a stability release. So Apple will be extending its life one more year, very possibly, in order to fix all of the wrongdoings on iOS 11. So that would be great for users using an older iPhone 5S. And I also wanted to mention that this concept was made by Ascending News on Instagram, so do go give that guy a follow down below in the description. Some great stuff, some stuff I really would like to see, such as group notifications, a refined home screen, always on display, which is just a given on an organic LED iPhone, the ability to lock your apps with Face ID or Touch ID, a simpler storage interface, ultra low power saver mode, which would be great for those emergencies, and a guest mode to lock out people that just want to borrow your iPhone real quick from many things. So that's the concept for iOS 12. A lot of things I'd like to see in the actual version, so there's that. Also, I wanted to ask you guys one thing. If you could tell Apple to include one thing in iOS 12, what would it be? The most important thing for you? Leave it down below. I actually really want to see this from you, because I will be making another video with some features I'd like to see in iOS 12, so please leave a comment down below about that. Anyways, some great and bad news. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, guys. iOS 12, we'll see you in June, like regular schedule. Peace.